I have no idea what Touhou really is. I've heard about it for over a decade now, but beyond anime girls and tons of games across different genres, I just never bothered to look into it. It always felt impenetrable to someone on the outside. But it's time to change that mentality and at least take a cursory glance at what this franchise really is. After all, this is Search Action, where I'm setting out to expand my horizons in the Metroidvania genre. And with a series as wide and varied as Touhou, of course there's a Metroidvania. But the nature of Touhou makes it quite different from a typical spin-off. For one, it wasn't made by the original developer of Touhou. The Touhou project was created by Junya Ota, better known as Zune, back in 1997, completely by himself. A running theme for this show so far. His first game, highly responsive to prayers, was a bullet hell shooter developed for the PC 9800 series of computers in Japan. He sold it at Comiket, the largest doujin or self-published convention in the world, and according to Zune, the game sold a grand total of 30 copies. But he was nothing if not prolific, as he also sold the sequel at the same Comiket, which garnered 50 copies sold. Now, here's the thing, I'm being a little facetious. He brought a grand total of 80 copies between both games to the convention, and was shocked to have sold them all. It was a legit hit. And this was only the beginning to a success and massive amounts of sequels in the series. Since that time, 18 mainline games have been released alongside 5 spin-offs, not to mention an official collaboration with Twilight Frontier that resulted in 6 fighting game spin-offs. But official is the key word there, as Zune never forgot his roots and is quite open to further doujin works based off the Touhou series. He has placed very few restrictions on the use of his works, which only really include unauthorized commercial distribution outside of doujin, spoiling endings of his own games, and requiring that his developer studio, Team Shanghai Alice, is given proper credit. This relative freedom has led to official and unofficial works that run the gamut from comics, music, anime, and of course, games. There are over 50 unofficial fan games across every genre imaginable, and that includes the subject of today, Touhou Luna Nights. Developed by Team Ladybug, Luna Nights steps away from the typical protagonist of Touhou games, Reimu, and instead focuses on a maid employed by the vampire Remilia named Sakuya. Not that any of this is actually introduced to new fans. Instead, Sakuya wakes up in a space that resembles longtime location Gensokyo, except it seems to be a fabricated version created by Remilia. In a fit of boredom, she constructed this place and challenges Sakuya to make her way through it while stripped of most of her abilities. Along the way, she'll meet other longtime Touhou characters that all have their own view on the events, but none of it really matters. There's some twists by the end, but the plot isn't exactly filled with nuance. It's an excuse to get some well-known Touhou characters together and see how they interact in a different genre. Though it is notable that all the characters that appear here are from the 6th game in the official series, Embodiment of Scarlet Devil, where many of them debuted. Honestly, the lack of story works to the game's favor. There's just enough characterization to get what they're about, and then you're on to the next encounter. Any more, and the game would be bogged down in backstory that I'm doubtful would elevate the game at all. No, this is more about the gameplay, and that's where this game fires on all cylinders. Sakuya is unique in that she has time powers and a whole lot of knives. The knives are her main attack and can be thrown at a near constant clip, as long as you have the MP for it. This forced me to think about how I approached enemies as time went on. It's never really a big deal at first, but then the amount of things thrown at you increases until the screen is filled with hazards. And even with the MP maxed out, you're never going to have enough to kill them all without using Sakuya's time powers. These come in 2 flavors. She can slow down time or stop it completely. Each one is useful for particular obstacles, but stopping time became my go-to move as time went on. It simply feels amazing whether using it to slip past a fast-moving saw, stop a projectile before it hits you, or stacking up dozens of knives to hit an enemy all at once. Naturally, it doesn't last forever as a timer ticks down with every move you make, but it's just enough to feel integral to Sakuya's moveset. What comes across as truly unique though is how Sakuya recovers health and MP. Rather than have enemies drop these as curative items once defeated, Luna Nights utilizes the graze mechanic. By getting close to enemies and their projectiles, Sakuya can siphon and restore a little health from them. It's a risk-reward mechanic that I've rarely seen, and evidently was introduced in the main Touhou games. But it works so well here as it truly forced me to think about my spacing with every single enemy. And it was an extra layer to consider when figuring out a boss's patterns. It kept me on edge more times than I can count. I'm almost dead, I don't have a healing item from the shop, and the vending machine to fully heal is several screens away. Do I avoid enemies and hope for the best, or try to use them to get at least a little health back, at the risk of actually dying? I was nervous at first, but it felt great to see my confidence in the technique grow as time went on. MP is recovered in much the same way. While it does naturally refill over time, the process tends to be slow and unreliable in the middle of intense fights. It's much better to use the time stop, as Sakuya will instead cipher MP from enemies rather than health. This makes sense as it's way easier to get close to them. There's also the added bonus of this technique simultaneously recovering time for the time stop, allowing me to travel across entire rooms without having to unpause. Of course, the enemies are still dangerous to touch, so maneuvering around them can become a puzzle in and of itself. All of this is just the base moveset of Sakuya, leaving me constantly impressed with how the upgrades and even obstacles expanded upon these ideas. Some are the expected examples, like a double jump or breaking certain objects, but my favorite allows her to jump at her own time-frozen knives in order to reach higher places. It's remarkably clever and just a cool use of the time stop. But then there are the obstacles and enemies with auras, and this affects how they interact with the time stop. Purple allows them to move normally despite the effect, yellow rewinds an object in time, and green indicates the object will only move when the time stop is in effect. It leads to a lot of fun platforming, though return visits can feel a tad tiresome. I mentioned a shop before, but even that is handled differently from a typical Metroidvania. Rather than money, enemies will drop jewels. On their own, these are worth no cash and must be sold in the shop in order to receive said money. This will net you healing items, a shop ticket that can be used to purchase something no matter where you are, and even some bonus items to expand your abilities beyond what can be found in the castle. But to be honest, I never used the shop. The jewels were worth way more to me on their own. It turns out that each type gradually increases one of Sakuya's stats, whether it's natural MP recovery, her defense, her attack power, and more. And while there were definitely some tricky moments during bosses, none of them left me truly stuck. It really comes down to personal playstyle, and I like that idea. But yeah, the boss fights. Every one is a treat, and each challenge my ability to read their attacks and dodge accordingly. Figuring out the best time to recover health or MP led to a great focus on spacing, and that in turn helped my ability to dodge. Knowing the right time to use the time stop and place myself in a better position or unleash a barrage of knives was gratifying. I often ended each one with a smile on my face. They were just that fun. It was a challenge without getting frustrating, especially as each one had a special attack that would be unleashed once only a third of their health was left. It would more often than not wipe me out, but those moments where I was able to adjust for them on my first try felt super satisfying. That said, after beating the main game, there is a bonus area to explore that's necessary if you want 100% completion. It's as fun and challenging as the rest, but the boss at the end is absolutely brutal. It's appropriate, but I was barely able to hang on. At the very least, it's simple to challenge, or not. It's not like Cave Story where there's simply too many obtuse requirements. Beat the game, and the challenge is yours. That's more like it. Now, while I've been praising the gameplay of Touhou Luna Nights quite a lot, that's not to say it's flawless. The action might be nailed down, but the exploration feels lacking. It was always pretty obvious where to go next, and most choices boiled down to a single left or right, with one only having 2 or so rooms before needing to double back. And looking at the map, it's easy to see why. It's not expansive at all. The rooms are tightly packed together, so figuring out secret rooms is extremely simple. I prefer a grander scope to my Metroidvanias, and Luna Nights is definitely more intimate in its approach. That's really the best way to put it though. It's a low-stakes game taking only about 6-ish hours to 100%, but it also rarely has any fat. It's a lean experience, and what it does well, it does very well. The sprite work is absolutely fantastic, though Sakuya's running animation does look rather silly. Everything else meshes within this world. But then there's the music. And holy crap, I was not ready for how good some of these tracks were. I'd enter a new area, hear the song kick in, and immediately sit up and notice. I know Touhou has a reputation for great music, and Luna Nights certainly demonstrates why. Otherwise, there's not really much else to analyze when it comes to Luna Nights. It's the characters of Touhou in a Metroidvania with some great ideas and translations of powers from one genre to another. The story is kept simple, the level design is extremely straightforward, and the action sees most of the love. I'm not sure if it's the best introduction to Touhou, but as a curiosity, it certainly had mine piqued. I enjoyed my foray into this new world and could easily recommend it to other fans of the genre as a bit of a hidden gem. That said, I wonder if next time I'll play a game that captures the search part of search action that I'm looking for. It certainly looks like a different take on the genre, as I never imagined combining a Metroidvania with luchador wrestling. Will the combination work? Please look forward to it, and thanks for watching. For more search action, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to Good Vibes Gaming, or ring that bell for notifications. There's also our Patreon over at patreon.com/gvgaming if you want to offer even more support. Until the next hunt, bye!